They bombed it, sabotaged it, cursed the train. It carried their tears, their hopes, their nation's honor. It will carry you to the peak of adventure. Let's talk about the train. Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage and it's time for another American classic. Today I review John Frankenheimer's 1964 war thriller The Train. To be completely honest, this was a rather random choice. The Criterion channel is featuring 18 films starring Burt Lancaster right now, and because I have heard really great things about The Train, and because I am almost always in the mood for a good World War II movie, I just checked it out. And now I totally feel obliged to share my excitement and admiration about this great, tense, riveting and surprisingly sophisticated film with you. It's actually a French-Italian-American co-production, and its story is based on the factual 1961 book Le Front de l'Art by the French art historian and member of the resistance Rose Valland. Le Front de l'Art translates to the art front, and Valland secretly documented all the works of art placed at the Galerie Nationale du Jeu de Paume to be shipped to Germany. All the works of art that the German occupiers had been looted from museums and private art collections throughout France. And right at that place, the Jeu de Paume, the movie sets in. The date, as stated in big bright letters, is August of 1944. The Allies are just days away from liberating Paris from the Nazi regime, and Colonel Franz von Waldheim, played by Paul Scofield in a fantastic performance, is determined to take all the remaining paintings to Germany, no matter the cost. They are all loaded onto one long train and ready to leave the country. In order to prevent that, the curator seeks help from the French resistance. Now, there was indeed an attempt to take an important shipment of art out of Paris that was held up by the French resistance, but in reality it was done by an endless barrage of paperwork and red tape. The movie, on the other hand, is a rousing and extremely impressive action thriller. But the movie isn't sacrificing any of the true spirit of the resistance for cheap thrills. The Train is a really captivating and honest attempt to portray the brave fight against an inhumane regime. But it's also a thrilling action movie. And even before the film states the date of the events, there's also a text at the very beginning stating that the filmmakers would like to pay tribute to those French railwaymen whose magnificent spirit and whose courage inspired this story. The original director was actually Arthur Penn, and he was envisioning a more intimate film that would have been more focused on the role art played in the life of our main protagonist. The actual train operation, which is the main focus of the film, would have been more in the background. It was lead actor Burt Lancaster who wanted more emphasis on action to ensure that the film would be a hit, and he called John Frankenheimer in to take over the directing job. Not only was the script rewritten and the budget doubled, but Frankenheimer seemingly also demanded and got the following. His name was made part of the title as John Frankenheimer's The Train. The French co-director, since this was a French co-production, was not even allowed to ever set foot on set. Frankenheimer was given total final cut, and on top of that, also a Ferrari. Maybe Lancaster, who fired Arthur Penn, and Frankenheimer, who got a little bit greedy, don't come across as the most likable duo, but they made a fantastic film. Of course, there's a lot more talent involved here, from the crisp, super atmospheric black and white cinematography by Jean Tournier and Walter Wottitz, the tense score by Maurice Jarre, to the great ensemble cast, mostly containing of French actors. Burt Lancaster plays the lead role, the resistance cell leader and railway inspector Paul Labiche. At first, he's not convinced to help because so close to the liberation he isn't willing to sacrifice more lives on paintings. But after he has to witness how an elderly engineer is executed because he was trying to sabotage the train on his own, he changes his mind and he and his partners do everything in their power to make sure that the train doesn't go to Germany. An element that I really liked is that this takes place at the end of the war in France and that our group of resistance fighters must have a long history by now. They must have done a lot of dangerous things, must have made a lot of sacrifices, but also made the Germans feel that they are the enemy and that France will never completely surrender. And you can really feel their bravery, but also the weight that must have laid on their shoulders, or still does. This mission, sabotaging the train, is their last one, and it is felt throughout the movie that it's a very special one. The train isn't a short 90-minute-like heist adventure. It's actually 2 hours and about 10 minutes, and though it takes place in just a very brief time span of about 2 days really, it is filled with exciting set pieces and great story progressions. If people think about movies that are more than 50 years old, they usually assume a rather slow-paced, maybe mildly exciting affair. But the suspense and the action in the train is really great. And talking about the action for a second, there are few films that seem to have this much weight. And I don't just mean that when it comes to the subject matter, but also when it comes to the sheer physical stuff. A train is heavy, and the things happening in this film and the way they are filmed transport that feeling of weight to the audience. As you would assume, there's a lot of usual movie making, make-believe special effects, people shooting at each other, airstrikes and so on. But a lot, and I really mean a lot, or maybe I should better say almost everything that you see on screen involving trains is actually happening. Of course, there are no computer effects, but there are also no miniatures or ways to fake something. They actually crash a lot of vehicles into another, and everything looks absolutely gorgeous. There are also quite a few aerial shots and a super impressive air raid that will very likely make your jaw drop to the floor. But the action never outpaces the great work by all the actors. Burt Lancaster is absolutely fantastic in the role. He gives the film so much gravitas, you can feel his responsibility and his struggle. He was already 50 years old when he did this film, but he's a force to reckon with. Yet, he also remains fallible, and he does indeed get wounded later on, which was actually a very lucky coincidence, at least lucky to the finished film. Lancaster did indeed hurt himself while playing golf on a day off. He re-aggravated an old knee injury, and they just worked that into the film, which of course adds another quality, because now he becomes this almost John McClane-like hero who is injured but still doing the best he can. Everything in the train feels super realistic. I mean, apart from the Germans not speaking German but English, and also the French not speaking French but also English. And it's also a pretty brutal and very nihilistic film at times. And while Arthur Penn's original film should have been a more intimate war drama, this film still absolutely captures the essence of the conflict. And I'm sure you will ask yourself at the very end if it's worth to risk or even lose so many lives to save just paintings. Even if these are paintings by masters like Picasso or Miro. One of the best and most memorable dialogue comes when Lancaster's character Paul Labiche and his resistance partner and friend Didon, played by Albert Remy, are kind of joking that they never really pay that much attention to art, and that maybe, if all of this is over, they should take a look at some of those paintings. The finale is pretty incredible and super tense, and while the whole film very much emphasizes on visual storytelling, the last half hour even works without our lead protagonist uttering a single word. Yet besides all of its seriousness, the train has a wonderful levity in some scenes as well. When Labiche is ordered by the Nazis to take some rest in a small hotel, but instantly climbs out of the window to sabotage a truck of theirs. When you see how everybody is working together to fool the Germans by changing the name signs of the villages the train is passing through. It's really delightful and very rewarding. And the portrayal of the Nazis is also pretty great. You get a good mixture of characters, and the man in charge, Colonel Franz von Waldheim, is a great adversary. He's not a stereotypical dumb brute, but a real admirer of art as it seems, which makes for a good counterpart to our hero Labiche. The wonderful Jean Moreau also has a small but very memorable role as the owner of the little hotel. Her character definitely adds depth to the moral conflicts of the film. So, in German I'd say, der Zug ist ein richtig starker, spannender Kriegsthriller. Großartig in Szene gesetzt, realistisch, brutal, gespickt mit tollen Schauspielleistungen und zum Nachdenken regt auch an. I give the train 8 out of 10. It's more like 8.3, but I don't do that.
It will carry you to the peak of adventure.
Alright, that's it like always. Comment below and let me know what you think about The Train. And also let me know what is your favorite train movie. You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram and Letterboxd simply at TheJimmyCage. And you can also support us now at patreon.com/TheJimmyCage and get some extra content and more ways to participate. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And make sure you hit that bell for what we have to tell.